This webinar is a part of a webinar series that we wish to organize to support our consortium members, mainly into the implementation of the gender equality plans that they plan to deliver. But we also decided to open the webinars to a wider audience to ensure reach out and promote knowledge sharing, basically. So far, we covered already 2 topics, gender sensitive language and was the first webinar, and attracting girls and high school students to enroll to ICT and IST. We have also a forthcoming webinar on sustainability of gender equality plans and measures for structural change in research organizations. If you are not familiar with EQUAL-IST, we want to challenge the underrepresentation of women in the ICT and IST research sectors. As you know, this is quite of a problem in particular in terms of high-ranking positions and top positions in academia and research, as we know that only approximately 9% of women are part of the full professors in Europe, in universities in Europe. Consortium, where we have Vylabs as coordinator, Ka-Foscari as a supporting partner, where we support all other universities into the promotion of structural change measures, and then we have 7 universities from different countries, as you can see here, and what we want to achieve, I mean, along the typical framework of Horizon 2020 project promoting structural changes for gender equality, we follow the typical structure of gender auditing, so assessing the internal state of the art, co-designing gender equality plans, implementing them and evaluating them, and then working on sustainability, of course. Our today's topic is on career advancement measures for female researchers, and here you can see a list of the measures that our partners and the universities are including in their gender equality plans, which are really covering quite a broad span from career planning to networking and support, but also support to leadership and promoting transparency and fair evaluation in recruitment procedures and criteria, along with raising awareness event and supporting actions to sustain work-life balance for all academic staff. Yeah, already started exploring the theme of career advancement, and our keynote was Professor Gerti Kappel from Technical University in Vienna. She is a professor of business informatics, and she has been among the initiators of a really broad series of measures spanning from attracting high school female students to enroll to computer sciences courses, and then also including changes in computer sciences courses curricula, but also tenure track research positions for women only. So she has really covered a lot of measures and also shared resistances that they met in doing so, and also challenges in terms of ensuring long-term support to such measures. Today, we really want to thank you, Professor Lejla Batina from Rabdoud University, for accepting our invitation to share their experiences. Lejla Batina is professor at the Digital Security Group at the Institute for Computing and Information Sciences at Radboud since 2009. Her research focus is mostly on applied cryptography and hardware security, but she has also been very active since 2016 in the Gender and Diversity Committee at the Faculty of Sciences, Mathematics and Informatics. And we have also to mention that the faculty was awarded for these measures with the Minerva Awards last year, and these awards are promoted, as you might know, by Informatics Europe. Now that after I go the floor to Lejla, we will have a question and answer session where, as I mentioned, we would ask you kindly to start already during the presentation to type your questions so that we can keep the tight time framework of this webinar. So I would really give the floor now to Professor Batina. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you for inviting me to give this webinar. So it's kind of, well, like one of those things like you always, like, we all know about and we all think about, but like until we really start talking a lot about it, nothing's gonna happen. And I must say, this is so kind of unusual to give a speech online and not see the faces. So I think I'm gonna miss it in some interaction, and if you don't mind, start asking questions very soon so that I know that you're actually there. Okay. So I was asked to speak about supporting career progression of women researchers. We got this Minerva Award last year, and that was actually really this topic. So I'm kind of not used to giving this kind of speeches, but you never know, this could be my new career. So let's see how it goes. So I want to say, in addition, a few words to my CV, that with this gender diversity, I only started 2 years ago because we had this nice initiative at the Faculty of Science, and I will tell you a little bit more about it in a few minutes. But that was kind of something that I thought, okay, let's just see, let's join and see what's happening. And then I really got very much involved, and I'm very happy about it. As like all my career, I was always like, when I started studying mathematics, it was always like quite some girls, and then maybe you also notice that the higher you get, it's like very few women are left, and then like in the beginning you don't really notice it, but like coming here to the Netherlands and getting a faculty position, that was like when reality really struck in, because I was like one of 2 women at the whole computer science department as a staff, and we are like computer science department of size, say 100 people or so. So that was really like quite surprising. So we started then already soon after that thinking about gender diversity issues and all that, and then one could ask what for and why, what do we want to achieve? And there are definitely some facts that everybody will agree on, because it's just statistics, you can easily check all these numbers. And what's definitely true is that, like, we also notice in our own environments that women are definitely underrepresented in all leadership positions. So we can say we care for a moment about academia, but if you look also like elsewhere, like looking at the governments, boards running companies, so all kind of positions where decisions are actually brought and where people can change some things, there are very few women wherever you look. Like, I'm really talking about like less than 20%, and those numbers are kind of like I said, easily verifiable. And we could also debate on why is that, but what I also noticed through our gender diversity committee and our contact with students and colleagues and also like younger girls coming from high school, is that women often question and even underestimate their abilities. So it's also something I'm gonna go back later on, but just for a moment allow me to say that, because I quite often notice that also with my own students, like even PhD students. So we're kind of very, very likely to not believe that we can actually do things also, like as being leaders. And yeah, somehow something went wrong with this animation. I wanted this in the end. So the fact is also that women are almost always paid less than men for, like, even outside of academia. You notice this sort of thing happening, and this was like last year made public, that even like for big names like superstars, like former tennis players, Martina Navratilova, was publicly announcing that she found out that for the same role, which is like commentating at Wimbledon, BBC paid her 10 times less than John McEnroe. So she found it really shocking when she found out. So that was really kind of really like in your face, you know, like you were doing the same job, and then yeah, you're still like quite severely underpaid. And it's not about money, it's more about principle, right? So that's also something that we notice here with the with payrolls, even at university, when you could imagine that something like that should not be possible. But nevertheless, in the Netherlands, there was this study made by the Dutch Female Professors Association. They investigated all universities in the Netherlands, and they published it in a report. And the findings were that actually, even at university, where it's like I said, it's very hard to imagine something like that happening, because it's like all predefined. You have like clear criteria, the way you are promoted and the way your salary goes. But it still happened that quite often, like, women were paid less. Like, in terms of, there are several levels in which you can be, like being full professor or associate or assistant, whatever. There are always like several different scales, and women were always like very much at the bottom. And somehow also the conclusion was that it's kind of something that happens, that women almost never ask for raise, while men always do. So it's something like completely the opposite. But now I want to say a few words about our Gender Diversity Committee and where we started, as you can see on this slide. So this is our own leaky pipeline. FNWE stands for our Department of Science. So that's where gender diversity was formed. So it's like mathematics, physics, chemistry, and computer science. And yeah, maybe situation is not equally dramatic in all those disciplines, but like, for example, computer science is like really the worst case, I would say, because the lowest representation of women. But this is like all together, and you can see that starting from the PhD candidate level, it drops significantly. So it's like every level up, like the number of women drops, so and the number of men grows. And there is like a small kind of exception from associate to full professor, but that's also kind of recent thing, because like there was a lot of initiative to promote women to full professors in the past few years here in the Netherlands. So that's basically what happened. We got more associate professors, female, promoted to kind of enforce this to get more women as leaders. And yeah, like I said, it's somehow obvious that every next level we go, somehow women drop out. And then the question is why, and what actually happens. That was the goal of this Gender Diversity Committee, to really kind of find out and figure what's going on, and try to come up with some measures that could change that. So actually the year where we started was 2015, where Maria was already mentioning those numbers, but here in Holland it was 17% female professors, which was at that point the 4th lowest percentage in Europe, which is kind of not what you expect from a Western country. And that's when Gender Diversity Committee was formed, and this was the situation there. Yeah, now I have the update actually, but it was very similar, this leaky pipeline. And this was the statistics that I got up to 2016 from our network of female professors. So this is for the whole country, basically. And then you can see that at the full professor level, we have less than 20% women. And it's the same dropping down for women's statistics, except like in the beginning. So like you can see that almost it's like the distribution is almost equal in the beginning, female versus male students. And we have even more women who actually graduate. That's this second column with 53%. So of all women that enter university, more than 50% actually graduates, but then they start kind of dropping out in terms of academia. So these are like Dutch terms, but I guess it's very obvious. So we have students, we have geslaagd, and those are that pass, that actually graduate. Then we have promovendi, which is PhD students. So there you already see the difference. And then universitair docent, that's assistant professor. Next one is associate, and finally full professors. And our committee was first asked by the faculty board. So faculty board really was kind of initiating the whole idea and saying, yeah, okay, that's something we really want to do something about. And we were asked to produce a report, and there is this report that we then produced. The link is at the end of the slide, so you can have a look at it later. So we basically put some recommendation in writing, and one of those where I will also speak in more detail about later on, but I just want to mention this university-wide mentoring program for women. So that's something that we also kind of noticed as being very important, like especially for young women coming to this say new environment and then not knowing how things work. It's kind of really nice to be given a mentor, and that's maybe sometimes also like it what like one would expect that we want to be mentored mainly by women, but that's really not the case. I think it's also sometimes there are very good men mentors, of course, assuming that all these issues are kind of clear and that there is this gender diversity and sometimes bias awareness. So I think there are men that are doing quite well in that role as well. And we also suggested to have something like fellowship just for women, for talented women, and we called it Mormon Fellowship. This was the first professor in the Netherlands, the first appointed female professor in the Netherlands. And it's been like 100 years ago. I think we're celebrating it this year. So that was kind of dedicating this to the name of Irene Mormon. And so we opened it for the whole science department. So for all disciplines, like I said, biology, chemistry, astronomy, physics, mathematics, and computer science. And we got 108 applicants for 2 positions. And that was really like a very, very unexpected response. And we think of a great success, because like quite often we have like faculty positions for like one discipline, and it's usually also like it is much more narrow, but it's also like very different structured than this was. And then we hardly get any women applying, and I will also go back to that later on, because we also figured that job vacancies are quite often written not to speak to women, because somehow like there is also like quite a lot of research done in that sense, that women sometimes like just when they check the conditions of a job or any call for funding or something, they're kind of very realistic, and in a way, like I said, often questioning their own capabilities. So and those job vacancies are quite often written like you have to be a superwoman or superman to meet all those requirements. Like they want superb scientist, excellent teacher, team worker. You know, it's all like these superb words and adjectives, and somehow that's somehow a bit too much sometimes. We just want a nice colleague, and you know, like somebody who's gonna put himself or herself into this role and kind of perform reasonably well. I mean, excellent, of course, that's what you expect, but you don't have to really have all these bullets with all these superlatives. And And it's also known that men quite often like check those conditions, and they like check, okay, yes, no, I'm perfect for this position. While woman often goes through the list and then she checks if she meets the requirements by like saying yes, no, too bad, I can't apply. So things like that. And this Mormon Fellowship really proved everybody wrong who thought that there are actually no women in science. And we had really hard time choosing two, and it was such a big success that we decided to have a new round now in September. Then we also suggested something that we call 50K rule, which is basically offering 50,000 going for a pregnancy leave are offered 50K to safeguard their productivity after they're back or during their leave. So they can kind of decide how to spend the money, for example, by hiring a postdoc to have projects going on, and maybe project proposals being written, students supervised, whatever needs to be taken care of. Or another option is when she comes back, that she can use it to, say, strengthen her network, to travel even with the baby. She can use the money to pay for the nanny or a partner to travel with her and take her child with her, things like that. So I'm reading the question from Sarah. I guess you all see it. I think there are some men in this webinar. That's my first take, because I've read all the way. Yeah, I also find it difficult to ensure support from male colleagues, especially seniors. Like I also noticed, for example, sitting in hiring committees and quite often being that only woman is really not very nice experience. It's somehow like, also then I also read that there were studies made showing that if there are at least 2 women on any committee or board or something, that it gets way better. So now we also are implementing that kind of rule. Yeah, I guess we just have to talk about this, and like I already said, it's something that like maybe our mothers and our grandmothers were also confronted with, but at some point it just became clear that a situation will not change. Although we always say, okay, it will get better, and you know, like we just kind of know what we should do and we want to achieve. But I think that just talking, that's now maybe probably clear that it's not enough, that we actually have to put some more measures into practice. So yeah, I maybe if I continue, maybe let's see if you get more inspiration from some other measures that we implemented here, and then maybe it becomes clear how we could do that. And then also, like I already said, the computer science department, so my department, we really are in the most difficult position in terms of having very few members of staff, but also very few female students. Like I think this year, first year students, we have 5% females. So somehow there is this, I don't know, belief that computer science is not for girls, and at least here in the Netherlands, and that's something that seems to be very hard to counter. So we thought, okay, let's also do something computer science dedicated, and we have formed our own Rabdoud Women of Computer Science group. So that is basically led by PhD students, postdocs. I think at the moment we have no staff member involved. Coordinate together, but basically they go to schools. I think speaker yesterday talked about this as well. Go to elementary schools, high schools, and introduce themselves, tell what they do, and basically explain to the girls there that computer science can be also fun, and that you can also have like a more interesting job than just programming, because that's somewhat like girls like to also see some prospect there, and maybe doing something more social, things like that. So what do we do? So first thing, like I said, to find talents, we figured there should be like a clear set of instructions about writing vacancies. Something that will speak to women, something that will advertise not just the position, but also the whole package, like how well children daycare is organized, how supportive the group is for family life. What do we do to, say, facilitate two-body issues, I mean, solving the issues and stuff like that. Okay, there are 4 male participants at this webinar. That's very good. So that's definitely one of the things, and that we noticed with Mormon, in contrast to say other vacancies that are written for, say, normal positions. To support talents, we want that's with this financial pregnancy leave support that we also talked about, this 50K to help women when they come back, to somehow not to kind of to feel like they fell a lot behind, but that they can do something about it. We also noticed that when whoever, men, women, are leaving, there should be there is something to be learned. There is a lesson to learn from why are they leaving. And we introduced something called exit interview to really kind of try to find out why are they leaving and why they decided to, say, leave academia and look for opportunities elsewhere. Another thing is to make talents visible. So that's this Mormon program. So like when somebody's arguing there are no women, they are not interested in this, so this really proved them wrong. Okay, and then this is something that we then got award last year. Like I put this slide just to kind of encourage every one of you to maybe apply for this award. We also thought we are not doing much, and in a way we just started, but nevertheless we said, okay, let's go for this. Let's just put this document together, and it will be also like like guidelines for us for the future to kind of write down what we did and what we want to do, and we actually won this award, which is also very nice, also something to kind of show to students and say all those maybe hesitating female students thinking, is this the place where I want to study and maybe later work? So we want to show that that we kind of really care about these things. About work in progress, I'm going to also give some of those things that I already mentioned, but kind of all together summing up. So we also noticed that we have to enforce certain things. Like for a PhD defenses, there is now a rule. For example, nobody who co-authored the paper with the candidate can be in the committee. So if we can put a rule like that, then we can also put a rule there should be a woman in the opposition, or there should be a man we should put, but it's not put there yet because everybody thinks that this is not even an option, while now we will soon have a PhD committee of all women in the computer science. So that was basically something that kind of we were tempted to do by this rule, there should be a woman there. So I think then that will maybe change the rule. There should be like at least one man and one woman, that should be. Also with the criteria for tenure and promotion, we noticed that they don't take into account the challenges that women are confronted with, for example, when going for a pregnancy leave or having small kids and doing your tenure, there should be a sort of extension time assigned, and there should be like also either that or evaluation criteria should be somewhat adjusted, because it's just not the same to compare a female and male candidate and giving them the same time and same guidelines if she had a baby or I don't know, maybe he stayed at home. That also could be taken into account. So definitely that should be somewhat considered. I also already mentioned these new rules for hiring committees. There should be at least, now we say 2 women, but there is always a student, so student can be also female student. And we are also, as our committee, GenDi, started with the training for people sitting on it, introducing gender bias and all all kinds of other biases, because now we are also at this point where we want to look into other diversities, not just gender. So that was like, say, our starting point. But we think that ideally we should kind of broaden in all senses, because we see now with strictly teaching in English courses, we get a lot of people from abroad, different culture, different religion, different, every colors, all kinds of things. And ideally, there is much more in diversity than just gender. And also a point that some of my colleagues at the committee brought up was that quite often we always choose this teacher of the year, and it's quite often a man. And on the other hand, there were also studies done that students tend to evaluate female teachers worse than men. It's somehow, yeah, I don't know, something they tend to do. I don't want to go into reasons for that, but that's something that kind of also there are studies supporting, and then we kind of insisting now on having like separate teaching awards for men and women. 50K support, I'm reading the question. Yes, I agree. So basically, yeah, CV is becoming weaker than the same age male, but that's why there are like rules to kind of cope with that. So for example, if you apply for big grants like ERC, they also give you 1.5 year extension for each category if you had a child during the period after your PhD, or even before. So for example, starting grants are from 0 to 7 years after PhD, but having 2 kids, it can be up to 10 years. So I think that's kind of already taking care of some of those issues. But it's also, like I already said, like for a position, I mean, for like a job opening, people should also then, and that's what we want to achieve with the hiring committee training, to evaluate differently 2 people maybe like being at the same stage in their career. If a woman had a child or 2 in the meantime, that should be definitely taken into account. So somewhat kind of put into perspective. It's kind of difficult to talk about it in this generic way, but I guess you know what I mean. Keep on asking why. Yeah, that's just something that we always like find strange, that you often see those things happening, like that women are not evaluated as well as teachers and so on. And there are also all these studies. We collected quite some articles on our website. I will give you the links later on. Like everybody knows these stories that there was a research article written by a person, and then if they change name man to woman, that it gets differently evaluated. Same for project proposals and so on and so on. Somehow, yeah, it's very hard to deal with these issues unless we understand a bit better. But so basically, it comes down that it's all about stereotypes, and there is also like a lot of things like suggesting that like girls typically are better in alpha disciplines, so like more about arts and languages and sciences is not really for them. And that's also something we don't believe should be ever said, even like, and there are quite some even schools in the Netherlands where you go and talk to teachers and kids, and quite often they also maybe subconsciously support this point. Like it's even like it's maybe not as extreme as that, but it comes down like if you go for science and if you want a career, then you won't be a good mother or something like that. So yeah, like this balance with the life and family, that's probably another topic, but somehow girls are not often encouraged to go for more technical studies. And yeah, that's basically where it all starts. That's what we notice with like entering levels at science department. There is also quite often people saying something like the woman should not be offered the promotion because it's going to be a lot of work and she would not want that, having kids and being at this kind of difficult position in her career. So let's better not even ask her if she would like to do that, because it's not going to be easy. So I would say we should never do that. Let a woman decide on what she can do, and of course, assuming like the ideal situation we should all be living in, and like having a partner that is a real partner and kind of sharing all the tasks and doing 50-50 parenting. I think anything is possible, and nevertheless, any woman should be like clearly asked and offered what she deserves, and then she can see how to handle that. And yes, similarly also go with like for any opportunities at work. I guess you all, I at least have heard several times like, let's not invite her for this because she just had a baby, or she doesn't like to travel at the moment, things like that. So at some point, women also like maybe would have declined, but it's still nice to be asked, and it somehow makes you feel that you are not forgotten just because you had maternity leave or you have small children or something like that. So somehow this presence in the community, in whatever community you are, it's even making things more difficult if people tend to just assume that you don't want to do certain things because you are a young mother or a woman or something like that. What can we do? And I think like not just us as gender diversity, so that's what we at least thought of, but like we all. So we should always think about when organizing something to have diverse speakers, so to have women, to have minorities, to have people from different culture. If possible, if you think hard, you will always find very different people in your community that you could also invite to join for whatever. When chairing a meeting, I've noticed myself that men tend to be more persistent in terms of asking a question. And even if you say, okay, no questions, no more questions, they would still try to ask questions if they want, or that just start talking even without being given a word or something. And women are more like tend to withdraw a bit and not easily ask questions. So you should kind of try to observe that and maybe initiate it a little bit and give a nudge to some women and just kind of try to give them the floor as well. Also, all kinds of sexist jokes that sometimes are kind of funny, but quite often not. And that's like, speaking for myself, I also try even to pretend that I didn't hear it. And that's something that should be actually dealt with. We should just ask, why is that funny? And I mean, like really make it noticeable, not just kind of try to ignore and pretend it didn't happen. Also, like looking at your families, friends, neighbors, there will be some girl interested in physics or computer science, and many would say you shouldn't do that, and just, you know, find something nice, or, you know, that will be more social and give you more time. Like here in the Netherlands, it's very popular, not if you have kids, small kids, not to work full time, but say 80% or something. So, and I agree, there are some career paths that maybe would not facilitate that. But still, I don't think we should be quitting before we get there. So we should not leave before actually leaving. And I think everybody should be encouraged at every stage in their life, in their careers, to go for it, like full gas on. And then once you're pregnant or considering family expansion or whatever, then you can always kind of try to sit back and assess and evaluate and see what happens, but not like looking forward and saying, okay, maybe if I want 3 kids, I shouldn't be doing this. I think we should really kind of try to promote good things that having a career in science or in general in academia can mean for a woman, or for anybody basically. And finally, like this refer to women as women, we had it also at our gender diversity meeting that somebody brought up this this video to our attention from this is the actor from Big Bang Theory, and she has this this nice YouTube video, so I encourage you to watch it. It's a girl versus women, why language matters. It also starts in a way with like somewhat irrelevant things like calling women girls or something like that. Like, would you call men boys? Or, you know, and then there is always this kind of people calling everybody guys, although there are women there. It's like, oh, come on, guys. So somehow it's, yeah, I think it's nice what she says there, and maybe it's a small thing, but it all starts somewhere, right? And finally, I want to say a few words about like looking ahead, and the future is bright, we conclude, because at least in the Netherlands we should be there, but yeah, not so soon. At 2051 there should be 50% female professors if we continue like this, so that's at least what they expect. But what makes me more happy is the article from newspapers recently that says, again, this is in Dutch, but I guess you all figure what's it about. It says that more and more girls in high schools choose for technical orientation, and that's something that kind of changed from 9% to almost 30% in the past few years. So it's going better with getting more female to science. And this is our gender diversity committee. As you can see, there are quite some men there as well. Not everybody's here. We have like 10 more people or so. And here there are some links. We have many, we have collected many articles, presentations. So many things I talked about are documented there. And yeah, that's where I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lejla, for your very interesting presentation. I see that really questions are now popping up in the chat box. I started with a first question on the tenure track positions for women, as I wanted to ask you whether this was enforced by a national measure. Sorry, this was a typo. And how was it funded? Is it funded centrally by the state or by each university? And then we have further questions. One from Bernadette from the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia, one of our partners, about finding talents and rewriting job vacancies. Did you establish guidelines? Have you considered cooperation between the computer sciences department and other departments, like linguistics, etc.? And then we also have one more question from Elena Gorbacheva from the Münster University, again from our EQUAL-IST consortium on exit surveys, as you can read.
No, just scrolling. So first question was from you, Maria, that the tenure track for women was kind of encouraged by national measurements by the government, but we really did it at our own university by our own money, and several other universities in the Netherlands followed that. What the government did this year is they were dedicated to appoint 100 new full professors, females, and that's what they achieved. And our Minister of Science, it's a woman now, so she put aside, I think, 5 million for that. So that's now what we had. So that was the recent initiative at the same national level. So answer to Bernadette, finding talents. So yes, we have established now guidelines to rewrite them. And I think we don't have those available in a written form, but it will happen soon, because we are starting with this training for hiring committee people sitting on hiring committees, and that includes also rules to rewrite those. I'm sure we should be able to collect that and put it online. So I mean, it's kind of more common sense rules, like something that speaks to women. I mean, I was reading what our we had a working group for that, what they proposed, and it seemed something like that we are all aware of, but just, you know, put that in paper was kind of very important thing to say. Like I was saying, like something that speaks to women more, like family dedicated atmosphere and things like that, facilities for daycare and so on. We do have a few colleagues from management department, and in particular gender diversity researchers that are member of our committee. And then they basically give all this more, say, technical feedback on all these issues. So I think it's also important to include people that I think each university have those people that are kind of looking into these issues from their own research perspective. So that's what we kind of more bring like use cases, like I mean, like I'm very technical in what I do, and I would find very difficult really like writing down a piece of that as a paper, like a research paper or something. But on the other hand, those people do PhD on these things. So yeah, I guess that's definitely something good to take into account, like their opinion. And we also have them involved in our hiring committee training. So exit surveys, yes. So those were of course like completely anonymized, and because there were quite some things that you don't like to read, but basically not many were very harsh, saying that some people didn't encourage them to stay or whatever. But what was kind of confronting and sort of worrying, that several women said that they felt that staying and going for a career would be a lot of sacrifice for her family life and for her kids. So somehow we felt that there is a lack of say support for that part of their lives as well. So okay, that's the last one. Then Mampis said something to check the website, but I guess I answered what was here.
Yeah, sure. I think that you exhaustively answered all questions, and I think that we can close our webinar here by again thanking you a lot for a very interesting presentation. It was very clear that you stressed how it is important to work on several aspects with very concrete measures, from promoting tenure track positions to offering very concrete support pregnancy leaves measures and fundings, but also changing internal rules in the composition of hiring committees and panel discussions for PhD thesis. And gender statistics. But what I also would like to stress is that it was really interesting to hear also from your insights on the importance of changing the institutional culture and tackling all the stereotypes that are there. Some of them are shared by women sometimes. Some of them are really entrenched into how the institutions are working. I think it was really also good to get this optimistic like a view from your side on a bright future, which of course can be ensured if a series of structural changes are put in place and followed up constantly. So again, thanks a lot. I would invite you, if you will have time, and also all our attendees here to register for our next webinar, where we will focus on sustainability of gender equality measures in research organizations. This will take place on 4th June, and we will have really, again, very interesting keynote speakers. You can find all information on our website and Facebook page. So thanks a lot again. We will publish direct recordings of this session on our YouTube channel. Thanks to Babis from Biolabs for all the support, and thanks again to you, Lejla, and to all participants for a very lively discussion.
Thank you for inviting me to do this. I found it very, very nice and kind of very good experience. So maybe I do it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye.